Hey, good morning to you. Hope everybody's doing well. It's 5 minutes now after the hour of 9 o'clock. Welcome into the Talk of the Town segment. Welcome to the second day of July. And we've been talking about having this lady on the air with us, Tomara Levingon, or TJ, or Coach Lev, or you got several names that you go by.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And actually from here and went to school at Forest Hills.
Yes, proud Yellow Jacket. Proud Yellow Jacket.
Basketball, soccer, softball. You got a degree in mathematics from Wingate. Played soccer for Wingate. Coached soccer. You've done a lot in the school system.
Yes,
Played
sir.
professional football.
Yes, I did in South Carolina.
Yeah.
They had the IWFL Independent Women's Football League. I got recruited to play for them. I was their starting center, and I played some incredible games up and down the East Coast. It was a fun time.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
I don't even remember that.
Yeah, that sounds fun. So one of the things you and I were talking before we came on air, and I told you that I was horrible at math until the 8th grade when Robert Shear told me treat it like money, and then it clicked, and I was a lot better at it. And you said it's all in how it's presented. And that's the reason I ain't a fan of this remote learning, because most people's mama don't know how to present it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's hard to do it this way. That contact with the student is not there, and it makes it much more difficult on the teacher's end and on the student's end. It's just how it's presented to you, and the teachers are all missing their kids just like the kids are missing the classroom right now.
So have you taught all grades of math, or you specialize in elementary, high school? What?
My specialty is high school, but I do private tutoring on the side. When I tutor all ages, all levels for regular math, ACT, SAT, ASVAB, and GED.
Oh, wow. That's a lot.
TJ, the thing that, there are a lot of teachers, a lot of good teachers, okay? But there always seems to be a teacher that most people, if you ask this to, that from a student standpoint, that teacher that made a difference, and I've got one, and
I do too.
Everybody seems to, and you seem to be that person for so many students.
Yeah, that's got to be an honor.
You have, from what I understand, a very unique ability to, and it's math. I hated math and algebra and all that stuff. It was just difficult for me to grasp the concept. But you have, you seem to have had over your career an ability to connect with these students in a way that is just phenomenal.
I appreciate that. I view myself as a perpetual high schooler. I'm not growing up.
You haven't graduated yet.
Yeah, I haven't graduated yet. I've been in high school for over 20 years now, so I plan on staying there for a few more years, and I just enjoy it. I love my job. It's not work. I don't have that moment in the morning where I hit my alarm and grunt and growl because I'm going to work. I enjoy it. I love talking to the kids and being there and making memories with them.
Yeah. How do you get a tough subject like math over to some of these kids?
I present it with topics that they are interested in or understand more easily to make it more presentable to them and where they can comprehend it and retain the information.
All right, well, give me an example.
Formulas. Formulas are hard for kids to memorize, so we do songs to memorize them, or they can make up their own song or version to it, and then they're allowed to use that on the test that we take in class. For example, some of the guys get a little, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, and then when we're taking the test, you'll see their head start bobbing, and the song that I taught, they're doing that song to the test to be able to do that problem. So
they're just not admitting that they're going to do that.
and then it's funny because then they'll be like, I got a new version for you, Coach Lev. I got a new version. Listen to this one. And they'll do it. So it's funny. They have a good time with it. And we play, beginning of the class time, we play games. So to work on multiplication facts are very hard right now. A lot of the kids don't have their times tables memorized because everybody has a phone with a calculator.
Yeah.
So we play a game called Hundreds Boards in the beginning of class, and we play for candy or for bonus points or whatever, and they have a good time with that as well. So we just make it fun and engaging for the students to make sure that they're actually retaining the information.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you have to have and this applies to any teacher, or at least any good teacher. Mine was Lynn Curley. She's in the second grade, actually. Best teacher I ever had. Taught me a lot. She lives here in Monroe. But you have to have the ability to size people up. You know what I mean? It's almost what you're really doing is it's almost like a job interview in the sense that you're going to have 25 kids and all of them are different. And it's going to take this for some of them to learn and that for some of them to learn. And they're going to learn at somewhat different paces. You got to be able to size people up pretty quick, don't you?
Yes, sir. And you have to present it on a multiple viewpoints and aspects at the same time. You can't just teach it one way.
Like I'm sure you got 2 or 3 that they get it, and you say, okay, I don't have to worry about I got to concentrate on.
Well, some people really struggle with math.
Yeah.
What grade level?
I do 9th through 12th. When you do high school, you do secondary, it's 9th through 12th.
Hard
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah,
It is.
And
It
it's
is.
harder now than when we went by far.
Calculus and stuff?
I prefer to teach the lower levels. They're more challenging for me with the kids, and I like working with freshmen. So right now I'm usually Math 1 or Math 2, and then I teach a course at Forest Hills right now called Apex. It's a combination of Math 1, Math 2, Math 3, and Foundations all in one classroom.
Oh, God.
It's for kids that have just had a hard time the first go-around with it, whether it be grade-wise or attendance-wise or something of that nature. And I enjoyed it. We had good productivity from it, and the kids did really well with it this year. So I had a good time with them.
Yeah, that's I know for a fact they didn't teach anything called foundation when I was at school. It's just changed a lot. I got a good friend, Mike's sideline Mike's daughter, who actually goes to Forest Hills. Leela is a very, very good student, and some of the math that she's learned, it's layers above my head. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She starts talking, I'm like, I'm out. Don't ask me.
It was just difficult for me. I liked history and things like that, but the math part. But, getting back to the other thing, someone I don't know, Guadalupe Canago.
Yes.
Shout out to Coach L, who still looks out even after having graduated high school 8 years ago. One of the few teachers who've impacted my life, especially her OCD ways.
She is a great kid, and yes, I am severely OCD.
Are you really?
Oh, yes. I am very OCD. I take medicine for it, actually. The kids laugh. In my classroom, everything's labeled and organized, but they love it because they know right where to find everything.
Anybody ever over the years mess with you and move your stuff around?
The kids do. Usually that's the senior prank that they like to play on me. I'll come to my classroom, and on my desk will be upside down or backwards, or they'll move stuff around, and it's all in good fun. In good fun.
Right. Well, you kind of sum it up in a meme that you posted. Most of my work as a math teacher isn't even math. It's helping students believe that they can also do math.
Yes.
We don't talk about that enough.
Right.
And that just speaks volumes. Sometimes as a student, you approach something and it's like, I'm never going to get this, Mm-hmm. And you've convinced so many students.
Yeah, you can.
You can do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
It's one of those teacher moments you work for to see that light bulb go off and that connection be made, and it's just very rewarding. It's a rewarding job.
Yeah.
I bet you also over the years have ran across people who were very, very good at something, but because you're in high school and you got an image to maintain, you don't want anybody to know you're very good at it. Like I would imagine there's some very exceptional students that if you saw them at a gas station or at McDonald's, you would not believe that. There are some people that will surprise you. You know what I mean? There's some very smart people that don't necessarily, we have these stereotypical profiles in our mind of people about how they're supposed to look and act. And that's just not how it is. There's some very smart people.
Right. We in my classroom, I don't allow a below an 80. There's no reason to have below an 80. They can do better than that, and I let them know that, and I make them say that to me. I'm better than that. I can do better than 80. But we refer to grades in our classroom as who we're dating. If you are from a 0 to 100, if you had a choice to date 100, why would you settle for a 70? And they're like, I wouldn't. I said, well, then you wouldn't do that in your math class. This is your future you're talking about. Don't settle for 70s. Work hard and get what you actually are able to get. And they're funny. We'll be in the hallway, and I'll walk down, and one of the football players, we walk in, and they say, Coach Lev. And I'll say, oh, you're dating a 98 today. And we'll high five. And they're all excited to talk about it in the hallway and brag about it. So it's funny. It's comical, but they enjoy it, and they love bragging about it when they realize that it is important to get those grades.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's some, you have people that end up that you, I think, Archie, I don't want to misspeak here. You taught at Monroe too, didn't you?
Yeah, I taught at Monroe for 15 years.
So you actually, you taught, we all know Jamison Crowder. We've interviewed him, talked with him.
That's my boy, yes.
He's moved on.
My man now.
And, you know, and here's the thing. He is the perfect example of you can do it. Because to do what he does for a living, I don't care what anybody says, you got to be more than an athlete. These people are not unintelligent to play in the NFL. He's a smart kid. He was a smart kid in high school.
He's smart.
He was in my AFM class and did very well. And he even was nice enough when he came back. I stay in contact with him. He came to Forest Hills and gave the kids a little speech about doing some work for me and everything.
Yes.
Nice.
He's just a great guy. He deserves everything that's coming to him right now. I mean, his whole family is incredible.
He bought our house for his parents.
Yep.
Yes.
He's also...
And he has a special needs
brother, yes.
Mm-hmm. He's also an example of... He would be a great example when you're telling these kids how this will apply to them. You know, people say, I'm not going to be a math teacher. It doesn't apply. No, but you will use it later in life.
Well, here's the thing. When you say, I'm never going to use this in my life, right?
You never know. I said that about math, and here I am a math teacher. Because when I was in high school, I was like, I'm never going to be a teacher. That's not something I want to do. I want to be a doctor. And now here I am teaching math, and it's the best decision I've ever made.
You know, even though you may in life not have to use, you know, statistical analysis and calculus and all that, the fact that you learned it, you know, it's not wasted. You put the effort in to learn that, and you know that helps you learn other things. If you can learn that, you can learn other things that maybe, you know, more pertain to your present job.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like a milestone. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people graduate college and they don't do anything that has to do with their degree.
True.
But you went through college and you suffered through and learned and stuck it out and all that, and those are life-building things you take with you.
Yes.
Yeah. It's just funny. My dad worked for 34 years for Combraco Industries, and he worked in the what they call the tool crib. He was a machinist, calipers and CNC machines and all that kind of stuff. And I remember being in high school, I failed pre-algebra 3 times. I could not pass it. And I came home one day and asked him. He said, I don't know nothing about algebra. I can't help you. And a guy he worked with named Wiley happened to be over there, and Wiley said, Roger, you've been doing algebra for 30 years. You've been doing, you do know. He's like, yeah, but all I know how to do is in that tool crib. I don't know, anything about applying it to real life, but you would be surprised at what you'll use in your life. And you may not think about it in that context when you're 17, but when you're 37, you'll look back and say, hey, this is geometry, or this is calculus, or whatever it may be.
Yes.
I had a history teacher in high school. I went to military school.
Because he was a mean kid.
No. But there was a history teacher that stood out, and he was one of those special teachers. And years later, I think about him every day, but I mean, when I think back on my school experiences, I think of him. His name was Major Vandegrift. So I called the school. I knew he didn't still teach, retired, to try to get a line on,
where he was,
and literally had to do a little CSI, to track him down. He'd gone to Florence and some different places. Anyway, got to speak with him.
Awesome.
Yeah. And, I told him what he meant to me. He made a difference, in my high school. I went to military school because I had no study habits. Class clown, cut up, Monroe High School. Went there and made dean's list. I needed some structure, and he was just one of those teachers that I connected with.
Yeah,
yeah.
And you're that teacher.
I appreciate that very much.
It's the same way it was with Miss Curley and me. Same thing. She just, I connected with her, and it made a difference. And what would you say, but to me this is important, and this is something I want to ask you, if parents that are out there listening now, and we know the last 3 months has been strange, and if parents are out there listening and they got a child, even if the subject isn't math, whatever the subject may be, if they're having trouble with it, what should that kid do? I mean, is it, I think for a lot of kids, they don't do anything because they're embarrassed. They just don't want to go say, hey, I'm having trouble with this. But for most teachers, if they would just come tell them, they would try to help. I think so much of it is not that the teacher doesn't want to help; it's that a lot of times the kid just won't say anything.
I agree with that because we've been very vocal at Forest Hills about how we're willing to help and conference, video conference, do whatever we can to assist the kids to be successful during this time especially. But a lot of the kids are right now just embarrassed or don't know how to ask or are just ashamed that they can't get it on the first try, which they shouldn't be. It's hard to do something on your own when it's a new topic or even with review. You still need that little assistance, that little push.
So what should they do? Should they go to their teacher?
They can go to the teacher. They can email the teacher or just send them a message on Canvas or something, and the teacher will be more than happy to set up a conference call via Canvas or a Google Meet or a Google Zoom or something, just to give the kids some assistance to make sure they're successful and can work to their full potential.
Yeah, and the same thing with parents. I guess if parents notice that in one of their kids, don't be embarrassed. Just say, hey, let's just call the school, talk to the teacher, and see if we can get a little help.
No need to be embarrassed about it all. None whatsoever.
I can guarantee you. Listen, I was a total failure when it came to anything to do with algebra.
Oh yeah,
I just was.
I took algebra 1, barely made it. Algebra 2, that failed it, and they let me do 2 semesters of algebra 1 to account for the algebra 2. I don't know. It was just difficult. But what I want to ask you about, for those of us that don't teach, you're in the teaching profession, everything's up in the air. The governor was supposed to have an announcement this week, and now he's put it off for another couple of weeks. And it's prudent. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen. But for teachers, talk for a second about how teachers are hurting. We talked about your connection with your students, and there are many teachers that have this connection. They're your kids. You're not with them. You're not seeing them. You know they need you. How painful is that?
It's extremely painful. It's hard to think about your classroom just being empty, not being in your classroom. I'll see some of the kids out, or they'll call me just to say hey, or at Forest Hills we sent home care cards to the kids, and they get so excited. They message you back and thank you so much for just taking that few minutes to write a few notes to me and send it to me. So I know it's impacting them as well. But the teachers, without having that one-on-one tangible contact, it's so much more difficult emotionally, and just getting the work across is hard as well. It's a lot more effort put in with the way that we're doing things now. It's a lot more work. It's obviously not something we would prefer, but we have to follow the guidelines and what's going on right now in society.
Yeah. No,
and it's a lot more work, and it can't be getting as good results. I mean, it's a lot more work, and I always say, I don't care what anybody says, you cannot tell the same thing about a person looking at them on a screen of a computer as you can looking at them in the eye and being right in front of them. It's different. It's just different.
Yes.
And for teachers, this is nobody's fault. I don't want anybody to. I'm not laying blame at anybody's feet, the governor, the parents, or anybody. But y'all are going to have a mess, because when they come back, they are going to have to be taught half of last year to an extent. I know they've been doing the distance learning and all that stuff, but it's not the same. You guys are going to have to play catch up.
I agree with that. There's going to be some catch-up involved, but to be honest, there's always some catch-up involved.
Yeah,
over the
true.
Summer, they forget a lot of things, and
This
we
is
have to.
unprecedented, though.
Yeah, it is, but it's still going to be catch-up, and we're used to doing that, and there's nothing we can really do about it except just push forward and work through it and get over it.
I've seen pictures of you putting out senior signs in people's yards and stuff, and that meant a lot to them, I'm sure.
That was so enjoyable to see their faces or get their messages on Facebook and on other social media sites, just to see the pictures they posted when they found out the signs were in their yard. It was just great.
And they had the drive-through thing, which we were involved with. We recorded that little thing.
The legacy ride, kids thoroughly enjoyed that, and the ones that are not seniors are like, "Can we do it next year too? We love it."
It's old now.
Yeah, it's gonna. I think that's gonna be something that started for a long time now.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this then. It's the same question I asked Miss Middleton all those years ago, and nobody's ever answered it. I would have had no problem at all with algebra if somebody could have just told me what number the letter represented. I could have done it. But nobody...
You mean in?
Nobody to this
R?
day has ever been able to say, how do I turn that into a number? Because that's what I never got. How do I... Like, I'm looking, I can do whatever you want with them numbers, but that letter... I mean,
it was
difficult
for me.
C is the third letter in the alphabet. Is it a 3?
See, you should have taken my class. You would have got it. I promise you. I would have been able to teach it to you.
Yeah,
But
that was all it was.
I guess along the way, I just never had a math teacher that could put it into something I could understand. I don't know. And I was,
How do I make that letter a number?
you have to solve for it. But to solve it, you do the opposite operation. But you just make it into something that you can relate to. If you have more than one letter, you can only put the same letters together. So it'd be like CDs. You would put all the country CDs together, which would be the letter C for country. You put all the jazz CDs together, which would be the letter J. You just do it like that. You turn it into something that you're familiar with.
And I could do it if you tell me what the C's number worth is. That's all. That's all.
That's what you have to solve for, though.
All right, I got one you can solve.
I've never got it.
All right, it's a sleepy little town in North Carolina. Streets are deserted.
Okay.
Times are tough. Everybody's in debt. Everybody's living on credit. So a tourist is visiting the area, and he goes to town, and he stops at the local hotel, and he lays a $100 bill on the desk.
Okay.
The hotel. He said he wants to inspect the rooms upstairs to pick one out for the night. So he said, yeah, go on upstairs to check them out and let me know what you think. So the motel owner grabs the bill, and he runs next door to pay his debt to the butcher. The butcher takes the $100 bill. He goes down the street to retire his debt to the pig farmer. The pig farmer takes the $100. He heads off to pay his bill to his supplier. The meat supplier guy takes the $100. He runs to pay his debt to the hotel owner for rooms that he had booked for out-of-town guests for his daughter's wedding. So the hotel proprietor then places the $100 bill back on the counter so the traveler won't suspect anything. At that moment, the traveler comes down the stairs, says, nah, none of these rooms are good. He picks up his $100 and leaves. No one produced a thing. No one earned anything. However, the whole town now thinks that they're out of debt, and there's a false atmosphere of optimism. And that's how the government stimulus works.
True. That's great. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, that was. You know what I wish I could remember? I wish I could remember the one we had about the $5. You remember it was the guy goes up to the room and he tips the kid, and the kid and you add it up and it never equals $25 again. It always. I'm like, how in the world does this work?
Listen, you on Facebook, you've seen all these math things. You got a bed in a room, you got 2 cows on the bed and 3 chickens and a dog, and how many legs?
Yeah, how many legs?
No one ever gets it.
Yeah, they're all made to just confuse. We don't need more confusion. I tell you that. Now.
I don't.
We don't.
Yeah, I don't need any help with that.
So, are you going to coach this year if there's sports?
If there are sports, I would love to help Coach G out with soccer and get back involved in the soccer game. I miss that. I have coached soccer, basketball, and for boys and girls soccer. And then I used to be the athletic trainer for football. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, I would love to get back into it. The gratification you get from coaching is different from teaching. It's just you can't compare them, and they're both so gratifying. I hate to miss out on it, and I like making those memories. So I'm going to try to get back in the swing of things.
Now, I'm sorry. I know that you don't have the answer to this, and I'm not asking you for an answer. I'm just asking you for your gut. If school ends up starting back in a hybrid capacity, which is one of the options the governor's talking about, is that still going to have a great impact on sports? I really
believe
don't
it
see
will.
how it can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I believe it will.
Good, bad, or indifferent. I just don't see.
It's definitely going to have some sort of impact if it's a hybrid selection for teaching it and going back to school. I just don't see how it can function at full capacity under that. So
yeah,
it'd be tough. TJ, what are you most proud of?
My students. They're awesome.
Your accomplishment.
Of mine.
What's a challenge you've had? You didn't think you could do it, but you kept remembering what you'd tell your students.
I'm going to tell you, I was worried about that Apex class with having all the classes together. And I just got some sound advice from some great coworkers at Forest Hills, and they helped me out, and it was very successful, and I was just really proud of myself for being able to handle a classroom. The class had a large capacity for students in it, And it was a handful, but we were successful. The kids were successful, and they enjoyed their time in the class.
I one final thing, and we're out of time. We got to go. But does the same thing apply to teachers that does to students in the sense that Archie mentioned at the very beginning of the program, that almost every person in the world has a teacher that was special and meant something to them? Does that apply the same way to teachers?
Yes.
Do you as teachers also have students you remember? That
Definitely. And Jameson Crowder, of course, will always be one of my students that I always remember and be proud of. I have so many students that I'm proud of, though. You just can't put a number on it.
Don't you think they pretty much kind of mirror each other? Like, what I mean is, like, if I have that teacher that was special to me, reason would say that I probably was a special student to the teacher, too. You know what I mean?
I could see that. Yeah, I could definitely see that being a factor, yes.
Of course, when I asked her, she said she didn't even remember me.
Oh.
No, I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding.
I was going to say, come on now.
I'm totally kidding. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it a lot.
It's our pleasure.
So at the
Appreciate
break, please tell me how to figure out what number C is, and then I'll be able to go on and do
There's
algebra.
not enough time in the day.
Hang on. Hey,